Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Postgame Podcast. Cubs lose to the Reds 7-1 in Cincinnati. We are closing in on the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Watching that closely as well. Luke Stuckmeyer, Cody Delmendo in studio. Ryan Herrera is in Cincinnati, just in case there's another big Cubs trade coming. And Joey is here because it's a big night, running the ones and twos. The live YouTube chat is up and rolling. We appreciate that. Thanks to everybody that's joining the live YouTube chat. Best way to enjoy the CHGO experience is to sign up for the CHGO Sports YouTube page and also to become a diehard so you don't miss any of Ryan's articles, for instance, from Cincinnati tonight. Here's what I got for you. We'll talk a little bit about the Morell trade before this show is over. We're going to talk about the Pearson trade. We're going to talk about what else might happen yet. But, Cody, this game was a snooze fest until I had a Rally Rice Krispie treat, and then we got strikeout, plunked in the head, ejection.
I had a bag of Funyuns,
home run. Oh, and you had a bag of Funyuns, too.
Yeah, and a couple of Rice Krispies.
See, that's myself. What it. Anytime you combine Rally Rice Krispies with Funyuns, let the good times roll.
Yeah, sacrifice the diet so we could get some entertainment. So how do I say this? If you breathe oxygen and call balls and strikes or wear black shirts and pants at baseball fields, you're dead to me. Like, I don't know what else to say about umpires, dude. That was like the good news was
that dumb ejection.
It was a dumb ejection, but the good news is that we saw Craig Counsell show some emotion. He's been getting a lot, in my opinion, in some ways, like way too much criticism for not running out there and standing up for his guys. But you know, we've made the joke about the tirade he went on against Jesse Rogers last week. Whatever. Like, to me, it is a little bit too much overblown, and it's largely just because the Cubs are bad and we need even more reasons to complain about them. So whatever. However, it was nice to see him go out there and defend his guy, because it was absolute bullshit that Nate Pearson was thrown out. I mean, I don't even think there were warnings in that game.
No, but in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing. But
yeah,
as they were saying in the broadcast, what if this was a critical moment in the season?
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a blowout. The only thing I can think of is that, like, when Will Benson hit that homer early in the game, it was a total pimp job by him, and the guy's hitting like 193. I don't care that he did what he did.
Right.
But that's the only thing I can come up with, and the Cubs are getting blown out, and they give up another homer. I don't know why Nate Pearson would be the guy that would purposely throw at Tyler
Stevenson.
Welcome to
town.
Yeah, welcome to town. Go throw it. I don't understand it. But that's the only thing I could come up from this game that would somewhat signal like maybe they were throwing at him on purpose. But that's like grasping for straws, in my opinion. This game was, like you said, it was a snooze fest, and then the umpires made it interesting because the ump show never sleeps. So, yeah, man, I don't know. Like I said, at least we got to see Counsell go out there and yell at the umpires and tell them that they're a bunch of morons, because they are. I'm done with them. I will sit here tomorrow, the next day, and for however many more shows, I'm here to do this show for years to come, and I will bitch and complain about human umpires that
get to go out and get paid.
Yeah, for Major League Baseball. Yeah. I will forever be, because I hate them all. I legitimately hate them all of them. So,
and I'm not saying I could do a better job.
Me neither.
The point is just that other sports have already started to use like the thing in tennis where it just says in or out. Like, it's not that hard.
Right.
Can't we just accept that some things are better with computers?
Sure.
Some things, not everything.
Yeah.
We don't want robots taking over as players, but like, it's okay.
The whole point is they just didn't read the situation at all. Like, I understand Stevenson was upset. Anyone would be upset. Pearson hit him in the helmet, almost hit him in the head. Like, thankfully the helmet caught most of the ball because he got up right away and walked to first base. Like, thankfully no one seriously got hurt. But like, I just don't see how as an umpire you can stand there and think that we need to throw this guy out. I didn't get that. So,
well, it is the angriest I've seen Craig Counsell this season.
Yeah, again, like
he was angry at Jesse. He was
it.
angry at Jesse for that vanilla question that really, I don't know why I drew that response, but this was top 3 times we've seen him angry probably this season.
Sure.
Even Dansby Swanson, whatever, you could read
after
lips.
he got thrown out.
Dansby was kind of chuckling at it.
Yeah.
I feel like he went for the ejection. He was F-bombing and F-bombing, and the umpire's like, okay, he's just taking it along. And then Counsell was walking, and he's like, no, I got to get ejected. Would you eject me now? Please throw me out now. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame him. Why wouldn't you want to get out of there a little bit earlier? I'm glad he got out as soon as he did. 7-1.
Probably
Reds
some AC in the clubhouse.
That's right. Less humid back in the showers. 7-1 Reds over the Cubs. They had 3 hits in this game.
Bro, outside of
that's the. I know we could say that every night that we do a podcast, but 1 home run in the 9th inning and 3 hits. 2 hits going into the 9th inning.
This is not an excuse, especially at this point in the season. However, Ian Happ should have had 4 hits tonight. All right, he hit the ball hard every single time.
I'll buy.
They hit
how
many warning track flyouts did they have? The team leads the league in warning track flyouts at this point.
Does anybody keep that stat? How is that not a stat yet?
It should be a
warning
stat,
track
honestly.
fly balls. Outfielders got a foot on the dirt.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise, it is what it is, man. I didn't really take this game that seriously tonight. You activated Bellinger, and he wasn't in the lineup for whatever reason, and Paredes wasn't available yet. So I'll be a little bit more interested in the offense tomorrow. But it is disappointing to come into Cincinnati after you actually win a series against a really tough Kansas City Royals team, and you go to Cincinnati, again, a divisional opponent, and you lose again to a divisional opponent. I mean, it's just been the story of the season.
Big time.
And Taillon didn't help him out either, but it's just this game. It's more. I feel like I did Friday when they lost the first game of the series against the Royals. Like, that's what this game basically was to me, with a little added flair with a whole umpire thing. Do
you assume that because Taillon pitched tonight, he is not being traded? If a team was going after him, they would have been like, well, we want that start.
I do lean that he's not going to get traded. I still think that I've seen a lot of discourse related to, like, was it smart to pitch him or not? And I'm sure it's being talked about in the chat too. But I personally don't think it was smart to pitch him just because he could have got hurt. And
you can just push him back one day.
Maybe tomorrow the Cubs get some calls. Thankfully he was fine and everything worked out, and that's great. I do lean though that I don't think they're going to trade him, and to me that's fine. I never thought they were going to get anything of great value for him to begin with. If he gets traded tomorrow, then I'll probably feel a lot different, because that means that they probably get pieces that I'm excited about, but. It's kind of how I feel about a lot of the pieces that we talked about them potentially getting moved. But Taillon was always one of those, like, if a team's really desperate for a pitcher. Like, the Orioles have already added a pitcher in Eflin. I thought maybe the Cubs and the Yankees would, but it looks like the Yankees are going for Flaherty from Detroit, yeah. And then Houston just made a trade for Kikuchi. Mm-hmm. These are teams
Frankie Montas just dealt. Don't have to face him tomorrow.
Okay. But like the 3 teams I just said, like they were all like linked to Taillon. Maybe Boston is still a thing, but I don't know. Like
I would not have loved Taillon to the Brewers.
The Cubs wouldn't have traded Taillon to the Brewers unless they were sending like a ridiculous haul.
And that does no.
Yeah. And the Brewers wouldn't have done that.
I don't think tonight's performance will have any effect, because I don't think he's being traded because he pitched tonight.
No.
But if you were to say stock up or stock down, this wasn't as great at start. Yeah. The emoji stock that down. You tweeted out was stock down.
Yeah, stock down. I was doing it inning by inning because I was like, in some ways, just for my own interests, I was kind of hoping he was going to get traded in the middle of the game like Morell did yesterday.
Can you imagine? They come out for the mound visit. No, you're coming out. You're coming. I know you got a no-hitter going, but you're coming out. What? It's only the fourth inning. No, we traded you.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I mean, Will Benson has been awful this year, but man, I feel like he's hit some massive home runs against the Cubs. Taillon's been pretty good about keeping the ball in the park this year compared to last year, especially against lefties. Not so much tonight. TJ Friedel also hurt them. He's the one who broke the game open. It's just, the Reds, they're a very confusing team because I feel like they should be better than what their record is. Like they are also like they kind of remind me of the Cubs in some ways. They have young talent that really came on the scene last year. They haven't had Matt McClain this year, but Ellie De La Cruz, he didn't play tonight, I don't think, but he was an all-star this year. They got other good young players. Their pitching was improved this year, and they just haven't put it together. So, I don't know, man. They still have a chance to win the series. I think Cubs have Steele tomorrow. If anyone cares about wins and losses anymore. Like I said last week, I still have like a 5% belief in maybe. They have to get real hot, though. Like, I'm ready for the deadline to pass and see some guys perhaps get promoted, maybe see some guys finish the season strong, stuff like that. Like I don't know. I don't have a lot of optimism for a lot of anything. Just ready for the season to be over, to be honest with you.
The live YouTube chat getting a little testy. We got Gary and Barb going back and forth. We got the Godfather jumping in. Let's all be nice to everybody.
Godfather,
all be nice. Godfather said he likes the trade. We are going to talk about. Wow. We're going to talk about the Morell deal.
We talked about it.
What about the Pearson one? Outside of the fact that he plunked a guy in the head, gave up a home run, and got ejected.
Yeah.
Do you like that move?
I like the
potential.
I like the idea of that trade. Like that's one of those trades that Jed and Carter have done well over the last handful of years during this rebuild. I was told wasn't a rebuild, as in moving assets to get guys that other teams are giving up on. This guy was a number 8 prospect in all of baseball back in 2020. He was the Blue Jays' number 1 prospect in all of baseball that year. He's had some struggles. He's still young. As you saw tonight, throws gas, touched 97, 98, probably can go even higher. And obviously gave up the home run too. But it's just one appearance, and I think these next 2 months he will be a reason to want to watch the team and see how he does. I do think he is a guy that replaces Hunter Biggie. I think that if they can get him like they got Julian Merriweather, for example, who was also on the Blue Jays, if they can get him into a role like that, we're not going to really care what happens with Hunter Biggie like some people in the chat feel. So, and I feel fairly confident that they'll be able to because they've done it so many times, like Julian Merriweather and Mark Leiter Jr. and, a handful of others they've been able to, fix. And the difference between Pearson and a lot of these other guys is this guy was a highly touted prospect and he throws high velocity. So I am intrigued about him. He's a big guy. Like watching him in that first appearance tonight I didn't realize just how big he was. So he can be a little intimidating out there, I think, for opposing batters. So overall, like considering what you had to give up for him, you give up, Pagano and then Josh Rivera, who you drafted in like the second or third round last year, was really struggling in Double-A this year. And he's a shortstop. You have plenty of infield prospects. Like, right. No, I don't think anyone really thought Josh Rivera was going to play for the Cubs, considering you have Triantos, considering you have Shaw, Jefferson Rojas. The Cubs are really high on, I believe, as well. He's in high A. So they have a lot of infield prospects that are, developing down there. They could afford to move a guy like Josh Rivera, who was pretty good in college. But to take I wouldn't even call it a flyer. It's more of like change of scenery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and again, you didn't give up any top prospects for him, so I like the trade.
All right, we'll talk more trades coming up here on the Cubs CHGO Cubs Postgame Show podcast. But first, choose Ray Chevrolet as your first draft pick and find the right new Chevy and price for you. Visit our partner here in July to shop the Freedom to Save sales event going on all month long at their location on Route 12 in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you're always able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. Plus, find the perfect tailgate vehicle right now. Get $12,000 off MSRP. That's $12,000 off on a new 2024 Chevy Silverado. Or lease the new 2024 Chevy Trax for only $188 a month for 24 months. Or cruise through July your own way and shop over 125 of their vehicles that are priced under $20,000. And if you've heard of Ray Chevrolet, then you've also heard of Ray's Price Promise. They're guaranteed to make your next vehicle more affordable than ever with no price changing, no add-ons, no hidden fees ever. That means the incredible prices we're talking about now, you can expect to see the very same prices when you shop Ray Chevy in-store or online. Shop that Freedom to Save sales event for the rest of the month by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. Time's running out. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you, Luke, against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. As I said, I can't wait for the baseball season to be over at this point because the Cubs are hurting me, which means college football is right around the corner. College football.
Chance to be hurt again.
Well, I'm really good. I'm really good at daily fantasy with college football in the NFL. So like I'm excited for that. That's all I'm getting at. However, Justin Steele tomorrow. If you want to get in on Prize Picks tomorrow, I believe Justin Steele starts tomorrow. So strikeouts. I think I'm looking forward to seeing him pitch. His last 2 outings haven't exactly been great. So I'm feeling good about him against the Reds tomorrow. Tyler Stevenson perhaps to get a hit because he kind of owns Justin Steele. He said that himself on his own podcast. I think those are 2 really good ones. I like strikeouts for Steele tomorrow and Tyler Stevenson to get a hit. So you do it all on Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use code CHGO for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code CHGO for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Very nice. Cubs lose 7-1 to the Reds. The Major League Baseball trade deadline is less than 24 hours away. And, of course, Jed Hoyer already made a couple of trades. One we saw, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, Pearson coming over. We saw him ejected from this game in his first game as a Cub. But, of course, the bigger move was trading Christopher Morell and Hunter Biggie and getting back, arguably, most likely, your third baseman for the next several years, right?
3, at least.
At least 3 years. Isaac Paredes, a former Cubs prospect who was then traded to the Tigers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, he was in the Justin Wilson deal.
Yeah.
And so
who pitched tonight for the Reds, by the way.
Right, and he didn't have great success with the Tigers, but then he ended up finding it and was an all-star this season, hit 31 homers last year. And I know Brendan has laid out, this guy's a pull hitter. How sustainable is this? He's got the power, but he only pulls it. And some of the outlying statistics, all these things say maybe he's been a little fortunate and lucky, and how long will that last? Will it continue to play out that way? Mm-hmm. I just know defensively it's an upgrade. No question about it. And it's a position upgrade over everything that they have because he's a better hitter than anybody they've got playing third base too. Not only can he play third base, I mean, he's not a superstar at third base, but he's a good third baseman. I think the most attractive part for me about the deal is that he's a good hitter with 2 strikes. Like he will do exactly what Jesse was suggesting Morell needed to try more often when he got yelled at by Craig Counsell, right?
For swinging for the lake.
Swinging for the lake with 2 strikes. Like, make some contact, go the other way. Well, it is true Paredes will pull the ball a lot for a lot of his home runs. He also will go the opposite way with 2 strikes a lot and just get you a base hit and keep the ball moving. So you need to be able to do both, hopefully, if you have a good team. I think they've upgraded the team. I am confident because he was traded to the Rays, Morell will go on and have a good career. And so I'm happy for him there. It is tough for anybody like Christopher Morell, just based on the smile, the hugs, the high fives. He was a very easy player to like. Now, did he get it done this year the way anybody wanted him to? No.
No, he was awful this year.
He didn't get it done. Not defensively, not offensively. And so the question is, how long were you going to wait around to find out if that came around? Or, based on what everybody's been saying here in the live YouTube chat, if you can find a way to fix the team or make it better for the future, go ahead and do it. They did. They rolled the dice. Now, do you think losing Morell or Biggie will hurt more if one of them's going to hurt in the future? I don't think either does. Because if they both go on to play well for another team, it doesn't mean they would have done it here.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I will agree with Brendan on, because I didn't necessarily agree with what Brendan was saying, because this is the funny thing about Morell and Paredes. All right. You look at Paredes' baseball savant, a large portion of it is blue. So yeah, a lot of people are saying a lot of his success has been lucky. You look at Christopher Morell's, his baseball savant, a lot of it is red. He hits the ball hard. He's top 5 percentile in bat speed. He hits the ball hard, right? We've talked about exit velocity and all of this with him, right?
Who's been the better player the last 2 years?
Paredes has been the better player the last 2 years. 30 home runs last year, 137 WRC plus, 130 WRC plus this year. Does the spray chart concern me because he doesn't necessarily,
hit opposite field home runs, or is the field he's playing?
The trop, is it Wrigley Field? Like, how does the spray chart affect him at Wrigley compared to at Tampa Bay? I mean, I think you look at the spray chart and you see that, and I think he'd have 11 home runs this year instead of 19 or whatever it is. I think that's what it was. And my counter to that is, well, the wind, we know it's a massive factor at Wrigley Field. So are you telling me that some of those aren't going to fly out because the wind, some of them might be pushed, might not go out because the wind blowing in, but that happens with everyone at Wrigley these days, right? So I'm just saying that Paredes he is more established. He has proven it more. He's
an all-star.
He was an all-star this year. Not that I really care because everyone has to have an all-star.
I know, but he was.
But he was, yes. But he has, I think the biggest thing for me, as much as I love Morell, anyone who thinks that I didn't love Morell at all, you have not been listening to the show ever, okay? Everyone who's listened to the show on a consistent basis knows that I was a massive Morell supporter, all right? The only reason that I truly am okay with this deal is that you now have a guy who can play third base every single day.
Yes.
You have a guy who can play third base every single day who has proven to be able to do it. You haven't had a proven, established third baseman since Chris Bryant was there. And honestly, when Chris Bryant, going into his last season with the Cubs, he wasn't even playing third base anymore. The Cubs had moved him to corner outfield. He was playing all over the field at that point, right? So you can argue it's been at least 3 years since the Cubs have had any kind of established third baseman. Morell was the closest thing to it since then, but it's not like he was doing it well. They gave him the opportunity. It was an experiment that they tried, and it didn't work. This guy has been doing it in Tampa Bay for the last couple years now. So for that reason alone, I'm okay with it. As far as the offensive production, I just think that if I'm not allowed to defend Christopher Morell because his baseball savant suggests that his expected numbers are going to be better, if I'm not allowed to do that, fans don't want to hear me talk about that, then you can't get on me for the opposite way. It's Paredes has been performing. So I think you have to look at those things with some sort of line. Like those things can't define if that guy is good or not. You obviously need results, but those things are supposed to help you see if that guy is trending in the right direction. Clearly, it felt like Morell was trending in the right direction the first couple months, but you can also say the last month and a half or so, the at-bats started to get worse.
Yeah, like Niren says in the live YouTube chat, he's a zero-WAR player the last 12 months.
That too.
Okay,
but
so
the fact that he couldn't play defense at any position outside of maybe second base in his time with the Cubs, and he was never going to. I mean, you want to do a different scenario. You know, Horner has been in the trade rumors. They could have moved Horner and moved Morell to second base if they really believed in him, but that also still blocks Shaw and Triantos, and you also still have a problem at third base. So, like, it's one of those things that no matter what, you have a hole somewhere there. So, and I know coming into the year, a lot of us felt like maybe Shaw could play third, but I'm not sure the Cubs believe that with this move.
But let's wait and see. You don't have to jump 2 or 3 steps ahead to decide if you like a trade, right? Mm-hmm. For me, again, I hope Morell goes on and they can figure it out for him and he can make the adjustment and he can become a good DH in Tampa. I don't think he's ever going to become a good infielder, but he can become a big-time hitter, which we've all seen the potential, but we've also seen the failures of it. It was time for change for this lineup. No matter who you were doing it with, it was time for change. And you're going to have trouble trading in left field or right field and some other spots because of contracts. This was a Tampa team that sees potential in a guy and also looks over there and says, okay, well, we'll give this up. We know what we're giving up there, but that's okay too. Just because Paredes is your third baseman, and right now you look at it and say, okay, I personally believe they have upgraded third base for this season and next season. If Matt Shaw comes up and figures out that he can play third base and is this great offensive player, then Paredes just becomes a trade chip if that's what you want him to be. And that's okay too because he's under control. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's not a long-time fix at third base. But for now, you have stopped that gap. It's not outrageously expensive. I know he's going to go to arbitration to make more than he was, but it's not through the moon what he's going to be making. You've made your team better. You've added proven power, not power that's there. You've added proven power. You've added better third base, and now you start moving some other pieces around. You got to make some changes, and you can't be afraid to make those changes. We all saw Morell get the chance. He got the chance all season,
and unfortunately, the results just did not come.
It just didn't show. Now that. Would you have been happy if he goes through it again next season? Then what happens? How long before you bench him and then you have zero value there?
Sure. I mean, the fact that you were able to get Paredes, I think Biggie has more value. The Rays are probably looking at Biggie as the big piece that they're getting out of this right now.
Okay.
With optimism that maybe they can unlock Morell.
Sure. And if they can, it doesn't mean that the Cubs would have.
Right. However, I think being able to get an established third baseman like him for, a reliever and a guy, and I think he was in low A,
right,
and then a very low valued Christopher Morell, I think is really good for the Cubs. So,
I mean, we were just talking about Biggie being potentially the closer of the future, right?
I don't know if we ever thought he was the closer of the future.
It was just a name we threw around.
We felt like high leverage reliever. Yes.
Either way, it was an interesting trade. It shook things up, and there may be more trades still coming down the pike before the deadline on Tuesday evening. Hopefully, Ryan Herrera is going to be joining us soon from Cincinnati. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends at Shady Rays. Get ready this summer with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that will not break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by more than 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from. You're bound to find the perfect fare to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. Cubby blue. I like to wear them on the golf course. You know what? I have trouble finding my ball off the tee. I'm always looking because it's in the rough. I wear my Shady Rays. That little white ball stands out a little bit better because of the polarized shades. Without them, I'd never find a ball. So I wear them for that. I wear them for fishing, and I wear them just to be a vibe walking down the street. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. You don't have to. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. And if you don't love your shades, you can exchange them for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code CHGO. That's CHGO for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by more than 300,000 people.
You know where else Shady Rays is really good? In the car.
The glare.
Driving sunglasses, top notch. Top notch is, the polarization on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't get any better than the Shady
Forgot
Rays.
mine today on my ride to the office on my electric bike.
E-bike?
Yeah, and it was a mistake. I can't do that again. I also need to make a stop at Penrose Brewing. I've been out in the Northwest Burbs the last couple weekends, and I have not gone to Geneva. I need to make a stop out at Penrose Brewing.
You're right
in Geneva.
there. You're right there.
I'm right there. And I'm not, and I keep forgetting to do it. Credit to me for holding myself accountable. However, you can be smarter than me by going to Penrose Brewing in Geneva, Illinois. They got these things. They call them Seltz-Ups. They're hard seltzers with real fruit, led by Lemon Seltz-Up, a national gold medal winning hard seltzer with real lemons. They created a unique twist on a lemon shake-up with a house-made hard seltzer and pureed lemons for a throwback to warm weather in county fairs.
County fairs.
Also available is the Lemon Tea Up, a half and half inspired hard seltzer. Just released this year is the Transfusion Seltz Up, inspired by a popular golf cocktail with grape, ginger, and lime. Maybe it'll go well at the golf outing at Cog Hill coming up in August.
Off classic. Go to allchgo.com for the details on that. Absolutely. Cog Hill, beautiful place.
Penrose is available at your local beverage retailer, or visit Penrose's Tap Room in Geneva. For more information, go to penrosebrewing.com or follow them on social media at Penrose Brewing. Is the chat yelling at us, Luke?
They are asking if drinking a Penrose counts as a serving of fruit.
Sure.
It's natural fruit.
Delmetric says so.
Have you guys seen, by the way, that Steven's trying to claim he won that outing?
Well, they did give him and his team I
was in the photo. Go back and check it out. He's trying to leave me out of that. I was in the photo.
I remember watching you just asserting yourself in, but don't let the facts
you and Jeremy took home the gold?
Am I in the photo? I'm in the photo. We didn't try to. We know certain people can handle winning and some people can't handle losing, and so we were like, listen, let's let the young guys go ahead and do it. We're not buying any of these. You can buy mulligans, redos, extra tee shots. We're like, no, we're just going to play honest golf here. We're looking forward to that. That's coming up at the end of August, the Cog Hill one. That's going to be a lot of fun.
So before we move on to some of these injury things and while we wait for Ryan, I just reading the chat about this Morell and Paredes trade. It's just so I just don't understand I really don't understand I felt like more people were going to be happy about this move than not, to be honest, considering how many people in our YouTube chat and on social media were done with Christopher Morell this year. I am outside of the emotional side of it. Like I said, and everyone who's watched the show consistently this year knows that I was a massive Morell defender, supporter, believer. I have come to terms with it. I'm fine with it. I actually am kind of like it. I'm just confused by the discourse. It really does confuse me.
Totally agree.
Well, you can't have it. You can't have it both ways.
We talked for so long about, Cody's right, Cubs fans swayed so far on Morell that I was like, okay, if they do trade him, what are they going to get? They trade him for a guy who's, right, like he's an all-star in the MLB. It's not the end of the world, but he's an all-star with all-star production. I think that was like, to me, that was an upper-level scenario of you moving Morell and what you're getting back. I was almost
considering
surprised.
how bad he'd been this year.
Correct. Totally.
I want everybody to, when thinking about this trade, first of all, note that a lot of the trades that you look back on and say, oh, that was a bad trade, they're usually the Isaac Paredes for Justin Wilsons. They're the Josh Donaldson throw-in a deal.
For Rich Harden.
For Rich Harden. Those are the ones you a lot of times go back and go, oh, all right, maybe that didn't turn out great. Not so much the guy that you've seen at the major league level, and you've had a pretty good year to look at him as a hitter and a pretty good year to look at him as an infielder trying to learn the position, frankly, for a couple years maybe. So ask yourself an honest question. If you were building this Cubs team and you were Jed Hoyer and you're trying to build your core, something we talked about just last week, was Christopher Morell part of your core Cubs team for the next championship Cubs team? Do you believe that Christopher Morell, in your heart, after what you had seen, doesn't mean it can't happen, do you believe that Morell was their number 3, number 4 hitter and a guy that was going to be the 40 home run guy, and he was going to be one of the stars, one of the core 4 of your team in 3 years?
I felt like that going into the season.
Right. But right now, having watched the rest of this season, my answer is simply no. And it hurts me to say it because there's nothing not to like about the guy. He's probably the most likable player that's ever come through here. If you're just talking about personalities, the guy goes up and hugs the grounds crew. He goes up and is hugging opposing players and giving pats on the back to the umpires. He's got the big smile that makes everybody. He walked off the White Sox in one of the most exciting crosstown games we've ever seen. There's nothing not to like about Christopher Morell. But if I ask myself the hard question, and I have to put my own money on it, do I think Morell was going to be a core player for this team in 3 years or in 2 years? The answer is no. So if you can get a guy to fill the gap that is better defensively and still gives you power, is under control.
Yeah. I think at this point on July 20, let's just go with yesterday when the trade was made, anyone who still believed in Christopher Morell was simply going based off what they would see on the underlying numbers and hope.
And faith and hope.
That's all they had was hope and the underlying numbers, statistics saying that, oh, he hits the ball hard. He is one of the top hitters in exit velocity, bat speed, all these things. That should translate to good results eventually. I would say for 2 months, I would say that those numbers actually did matter. But then in June and most of July, that all went away. It was like what he was doing the first 2 months of the season was a lot different. And so it wasn't that I was giving up on him. It was more about this guy is starting to press and because things aren't going his way. And in some ways it felt like I was ready to come on here at some point and say, we need to send this guy to Iowa or something, or sit him for 5 days like you did with Seiya last year, or where I don't even know if he had any options, if you could option him. But I'm just saying, like I was to that point. I was getting to that point where I felt like you needed to give him that mental reset because they hadn't really done that. And I don't know what would have happened. I will say this. If we are sitting here in 3 years and we're talking about Christopher Morell going on to have a good career with the Rays, and we're like, and it's like the worst thing, it feels like Dylan Cease with the White Sox or Eloy for that 1 year before he turned into an injury-prone player who can't stay on the field. Like, if it feels like that, then that means the Cubs failed not only with that trade, but with everything else. Meaning they weren't able to develop him. They were unable to develop the rest of their team either. There's, as much as I loved Morell and as much as a believer I was in Morell, he was not going to be the sole reason this team was going to have success or not. They have prospects coming up. They have good players on the team. I know it doesn't look like it right now after the game we just watched, but Bellinger's return, I don't know how they're good. I don't know what his future holds, but you got a really good first baseman in Michael Busch. You still have Happ. You still have PCA, who's made some gradual steps over the last couple weeks in July. I know it's been a bumpy ride, but he's still a guy who has a lot of value. And, to me, that trade kick-started the offseason more than anything else. You fixed a hole that you absolutely needed to fix. So
big time. Busch and Paredes. First and third. When's the last time you felt at least that comfortable with those two positions? Offensively and defensively. I feel like Busch has gotten better. Offensively, he's been way better than I expected for a 26-year-old rookie coming in, but you have a 25-year-old and a 26-year-old now that have both shown me for a season, basically, hey, we can get this done and we could do it at a pretty high level.
Right.
Are they Rizzo and Bryant in their prime in 2016 with the Cubs? No, but they've upgraded the two positions in my eyes the way they're going. And I also think one thing is for sure about Morell. He may end up being your 40 home run guy. Maybe you're right about that. And again, I hope that for him personally. But I am also confident in any baseball that I've ever watched in my life. I fully believe he does not have a position on the field.
Yeah.
And
maybe second base.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But he is his best position is what David Ross said a couple years ago, DH. And if you really look at his value, that lowers his value, even if he does end up being that.
Because if he doesn't hit as a DH,
if he ends up being a 35 home run guy, great. But the way he's hitting right now, that's zero value as DH, especially when you have potentially Mo Baller, Casey, and some other guys that might also. Seiya, if he keeps playing like this and you got to put him in right field, but he hits well enough that you're going to have multiple guys that you can put in that DH position that you don't have to put the risk on it being Morell and will he figure it out at the plate.
Yeah. And
so
you're
you're taking some of those chips off the table too.
Two things. Again, the biggest reason that I've accepted it and I've grown to like it more today than I did yesterday is just the fact that you have a guy who can play third base, and Morell just wasn't good at it, and they couldn't find a position for him to play anywhere else. And the second thing, I will agree with Brendan on this. Paredes is a good player. Is he a superstar? No. So this, like I said, this trade to me kicks off the offseason early, and that means if this is going to work out for the Cubs, that they still have to find a way to add a superstar bat. Whether it's somehow trading for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. before 5 p.m. tomorrow or in the offseason, or doing whatever it takes to get Juan Soto. I don't know. I don't know what it is. All I know is that the only thing that I think is holding fans back the most with the Paredes trade is that, yeah, he's a good player. Yeah, you can play him at third base every single day, and you got that position locked down. However, I still feel like you're missing a real superstar player in the lineup. And so that comes into the point of you got to be able to find that bat at some point. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, almost like this trade, you could feel a certain way about it, but it really doesn't change the long-term outlook right now.
No,
not at
all.
They're
trying to win in 2025.
I don't believe any superstars were involved in the deal.
Correct. They still have the same needs. Yes. They have the same outlook for this season. I don't know how drastically this changes the outlook next season if it was a move in a vacuum, but you're starting to build, and I think that says a lot about what Morell was for this team right now. Or just like, yeah, this was a trade. You know, personally, people may feel a certain way about it, but I don't really think anybody could argue that the Cubs are vastly in a different spot than they were yesterday.
Yep. Still desperately need superstars. I think they may have, it's very possible that they have improved themselves at first base and third base compared to where they were at this time last year. Yeah. Okay. But it's also okay if at the trade deadline here, they pulled off a trade that in the future we look at it and go, it was a B. It was a B minus. It was a C. That's okay too, because you know what? They have to do something. What are they, the fourth worst team in the National League?
Right.
Well, then I'm not okay with. then I can't just sit there and be like, let's roll out Morell again. I bet it comes. Because if it doesn't happen, then what? And I think they had seen enough to say, we have to roll the dice on Morell's never going to be the guy that we need him to be.
And last thing on Morell for me, I know, like I've talked about it on the show. I tweeted about it. Like I said that if they traded Morell, we would look back on it, like kind of like how we do Kyle Schwarber. And the only difference in this scenario is that you non-tendered Kyle Schwarber
completely,
and you got an established young player to replace Morell.
Yeah.
So at least in this scenario, there's reason to be optimistic that this could work out. I knew when they non-tendered Kyle Schwarber that shit was going to come back to haunt them.
Also, he helped them win a World Series, and he hit an historic home run in the postseason, and he had shown you from the left side of the plate, there was no question he was a serious power hitter in this game. Even if he was going to strike out a lot or do things that made you unhappy, I also think if they knew for sure 1,000% that the DH was coming, then it was an even bigger mistake to let him walk away.
Sure.
Because you could have dealt with that.
I just think the situations are different now.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. We do have a super chat. Ryan's ready to join us. Super chat from Joey Smith for $9.99. I'm miserable. Can't wait for the season to be over. Credit to you guys for having to watch this team every day. Can't wait for hockey to start so they can hurt me too. Oh well, Cubs in 4.
Cubs in 4.
Let's go out to our guy Ryan Herrera.
Thank you, Joey. Appreciate it.
Is it the Queen City? Is that Cincinnati?
I thought that was. I
don't know.
Is Cincinnati the Queen City?
Both of them, Herb says. Charlotte and Cincinnati.
They're both the Queen City? Isn't that something? All right, he's in Cincinnati.
Home of really shitty chili as well.
Bad chili.
Look at me. I'm trying to get a new background.
Look at that background.
So you're not in a toilet.
He's not in the toilet. Unless that's a
today.
green screen. It could be a green screen.
Could be a green screen.
in the bathroom.
All right, Ryan. So obviously we just spent a lot of time talking about the Morell trade, and you watch the video of it over the weekend. You see how emotional it is. Moving forward, that he's gone. Maybe there'll be more trades coming up. Before we get to the injured guys, do you have any sense of that the Cubs are working on anything here in the last several hours, obviously, before the trade deadline tomorrow?
I mean, I think the relievers are obviously still in play. They have relievers that, the Mark Letter Juniors of the world, like guys that other teams may want for 2024 purposes. And like we've talked about, like Jed and the front office are focused on making moves that could potentially help in 2024, but are more focused on 2025 and beyond. So wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. Obviously, go through today and the team is still together at the end of the day. Jameson Taillon makes his start today versus, being traded where he was obviously a trade candidate. So, Jed likes to move in silence, obviously. But so nothing concrete yet, but what do we got? Another just however many hours, 20 hours or so until the trade deadline is officially over. Or until the trade deadline and trades can no longer be made. So deadlines, as Jed says, deadlines kind of force action. And so if the Cubs are looking to get anything for some of these guys, that deadline's coming up, and they may have to make some moves soon.
Bellinger could play in Game 2 of this series. He's back. Take us through the chronology of how that happened, because there was kind of like weird how he became available to them. And I mean, is it possible that a team would trade for him, having not seen him actually play a game before coming back from the injured list? I just think that part's unlikely.
Yeah, so he obviously has been going through his progressions with the fractured middle finger on his hand, and part of that was being able to hit against live pitching, hitting against the machine, seeing different pitching and different velocities, and then being able to throw the ball without any issues. So today was he had been hitting throughout the day, I guess during the afternoon, and then as they were doing on-field work, he was set to throw. He was taking a round of live BP, and Craig Counsell said that they were within days of him being activated and still potentially by the end of the road trip. And then, I was an hour before first pitch, we get the update that he had in fact been activated from the IL. So obviously they got good news, good info from his pregame work, enough that they felt comfortable activating him. He didn't, I don't know if he'll be in the lineup tomorrow. I guess we'll see. I would think that he would if he was activated today, but we'll see on that one. But as the other part of the question, that's a tough call, not just because of the injury, and there's also a sense that he's sort of underperformed this year compared to what the contract was and what the Cubs have needed out of him. And with the fact that he has options and potential opt-outs and another couple years, and was it $52.5 million remaining on the contract after the season, he has a lot of control over his future, and that could make some teams wary of going out and getting him. And that he's another one where it's tough to know. It's tough to know if any teams would be willing to pay whatever the Cubs are asking for him, or if teams are willing to give up much to bring him in.
And then there was the update on Adbert Alzolay. It just doesn't seem like he's going to be pitching anymore this year, right?
Yeah. He was, I want to say he had 3, maybe 4 rehab appearances, and looked like he was, sometime in August could be coming back to this team. And then, Craig Counsell tells us today that he had a little bit of a setback, wasn't recovering well from his last outing of Saturday, I believe. Wasn't recovering well, and they, decided to he's heading back to Chicago to check in with the doctors, be evaluated, and see kind of where they go from there. Adbert's obviously been out for a while, like mid-May, something like that. He's been out for a while and been trying to come back from this right flexor strain. But for him, and it's been happening a little bit with Cubs arms of setbacks, right? A few guys have had setbacks of their own recently when they were kind of, a few weeks ago, we're hoping that end of July, early August, they were going to get a lot of these guys back. Adbert's kind of the next one, the newest one that's had a setback, and not sure when he could actually come back and contribute to the team again.
I see Gary really wants us to talk about the luxury tax and how Paredes, and Pearson put him over it. And so, I would agree that likely points to, as Ryan was saying, that some of these relievers are going to be on the market, and there probably are still some moves. I don't know if there's a move as big as trading Bellinger, because I think that's difficult, or moving someone that has no trade clause, because I think that's obviously really difficult.
Well, Jameson Taillon, Patrick Moody, and I think we might have talked about this, so maybe I'm just speaking in general. But he tweeted that Taillon has a 10-team no trade list, and I'm just curious if it's known who the 10 teams are.
No, that's kind of still unclear what his 10 teams are. He did say today, asked postgame about if he's had any conversations pertaining to that, about teams Cubs may want to trade him to, and that are on his list or whatever. He said he hasn't been approached to say yes or no to any teams regarding a trade. So whether that's the Cubs not shopping him, or the Cubs, whoever's on the 10-team the 10-team list not going out and trying to acquire Taillon, he said he hasn't had to make any decisions about yes or no on certain teams yet. That he doesn't know if his agent has had those conversations, but he hasn't.
How that works, because it's not like he has a no trade clause. Like, the Cubs don't have to necessarily follow that, right?
And it doesn't mean that there's no chance that they trade him, but the fact that he made the start for the Cubs instead of another team, I would say there's nothing burning where they're there wasn't something where they were talking to another team this afternoon and they were ready to pull the trigger on that trade. I don't think that would. I don't think that's the case, or they wouldn't have let him go out there and pitch.
And there was no. Counsell was asked pregame. There was no. They didn't kind of really think about, or at least he didn't think about not letting Taillon not make the start today. There was no discussion that he was part of that to not have Taillon make his start today.
Yeah. I only bring it up because if you're talking about bigger trades, Taillon's one that we've talked about. I think Horner is still at play in some aspects. Maybe not with the Dodgers now like we might have anticipated now that they have Tommy Edman from that really dumb trade that the White Sox decided to make today. Yeah, I mean, I definitely envision seeing Leiter and Neris and Smiley on their way out of here tomorrow, and Tauchman. I'm actually still surprised Tauchman is here.
Hey, none of our guys yet, Ryan, right? We did our confidence pool 5 through 1. We had to use each number once. And so far, he's made 2 trades, and none of them involve any of the guys we said. Yeah. Nobody picked Morell.
No one picked Morell.
We're all still at 0. We're all still at 0 points. We might end up in a 3-way tie. You never know.
At 0.
You guys can fight over who wins. I really don't care. But I'll just always remember if
That's who we
But
picked.
I think my number 5 was Tauchman and then Leiter. So I do feel really good about Tauchman being traded tomorrow.
It's going to all come down to the point values. All come down to those point values. It's like an Olympic judge. Could go either way. Joey, you think they're going to trade anybody of significance?
Yeah, I think there will be at least one more move. I don't really have any feeling as to who that will be, but I would be surprised if all 3 of Taillon, Tauchman, and who were we just talking about? Who was the last candidate?
Neris.
Yeah.
Or Smiley.
Or Leiter.
Or Leiter.
I think Smiley.
Or Horner.
Miller
as well.
I would
Horner.
say Taillon, Smiley,
Steele.
and
Steele.
Taillon,
Better have
Smiley,
somebody ready to
Tauchman.
make that start tomorrow.
We haven't talked about it a ton, but I do find it interesting now that they've added Paredes to play third full time. It does block some of their infield prospects that we kind of thought Shaw would debut this year. Triantos has taken big steps in the minors this year. They're both in Double-A still, so I don't necessarily think it's something that happens tomorrow, but maybe it's something to follow in the offseason if they don't trade Horner tomorrow. I love Horner. He's a really good defensive player, but we've talked about the lack of power, and we've seen Shaw show that he has more power in the minors. How do the Cubs feel about that? I think that's a storyline that we're going to be following for the next 6 months.
We'll see. It's going to be an interesting couple of hours tomorrow as we get ready for the trade deadline to come and go. Cubs have done. I would on a Richter scale, if like a 5 is that's a big one. It was like a 3. I think Morell being traded let people know that they are serious about changing things up going into next season and changing things up for the future of the team. Doesn't mean that they're automatic just sellers or this was. I think you could argue this was as much about buying as it was about selling. You think that's fair?
I mean, you look back at what Craig Counsell said last week that trying to explain that it's more of a gray area right now. And yes, I think especially with this front office and going back to the Theo days, it was always pretty clear whether they were buyers or sellers. Didn't really try to thread any sort of needle in that sense. But that's something that Craig Counsell tried to, or what was kind of talking about last week, as far as it's not black and white, it's not buyers, sellers, it's probably not going to be that easy. And a few days later, obviously, we kind of see what he was talking about, in that did they technically buy? Yeah, it was I think Paredes was what you could look at as sort of a buy for 2024. But also fits into the idea that Jed Hoyer talked about last week about making moves that with a focus on 2025 and beyond, like potentially making moves that help in 2024, but not only for 2024, for helping they'd also need to help in 2025 and beyond. And I think that's what you've seen with the Pearson trade, the Paredes trade, is trying to get players who could potentially help them this year, but are definitely have potential to help them in 2025 and beyond. I think that it's not black and white with what the Cubs are trying to do at the trade deadline, and I guess it's like they kind of said that, right? And maybe not a lot of people believed them in that sense, but the moves they made over the weekend kind of showed that.
All right, Ryan, is your Boots on the ground here at CHGO. We got boots on the ground. Ryan drove to Cincinnati. He's in Cincinnati. If something happens in Cincinnati, you can read about it, of course, allchgo.com. Get the Die Hard membership and follow Ryan on Twitter. And right here, we'll have the podcast tomorrow. We're here for the post game. We'll also be talking a lot about the trade deadline as well.
More importantly, I would like a Skyline Chili review.
Oh.
I feel like I need to try it once while I'm out here. Like, I'm positive I'm going to hate it. But I feel like I need to.
It's dangerous, though, Ryan. You got to be ready to work at any moment's notice.
I was telling Luke earlier on the couch, like, I got to get to the point where I wave the white flag so I can just purely be here for hate watching. So that means shitting on other cities as well. So if we can shit on Cincinnati, that would be nice.
Most likely he's going to say that the chili is sus or mid.
No reason that chili.
All right, thanks, Ryan. We'll be in touch, and if anything big happens, call Cody. I'll be sleeping. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast. Cubs lose. Trade deadline's on the way. We will see you again tomorrow for the podcast on Tuesday. Until then, fly the W.